Well, welcome guys, thanks for checking out this video. Something I did find quite personally interesting, as I am a bit of a collector for this system, and hopefully you guys do as well. Now I thought to cover this type of content, as I've had some comments in the past regarding my previous videos, people asking what is the difference between 50Hz and 60Hz and PAL and NTSC. What is this all about then? Well, to try and clarify and get you guys a better understanding, I thought I'd go ahead and dig out one of my favourite consoles of all time, and that is the Sega Mega Drive. Now I personally always have a soft spot for this console, as this was the very first console that I had back in the day when I was a kid. Now if you actually look at this console, you may be thinking there's actually nothing really different to this console than any other generic Sega Mega Drive, but I have had this actually switchless modded, which that means there's no actually switches actually externally visible. Everything is just simply done by switching to 50Hz to 60Hz by holding down the reset button. And this was done by a guy called Raymond. You might have heard of him from, if you actually check out Adam Korolick's actual videos, his Figure Out Productions. I've always been following that guy since he first came out, and I remember one of his very first videos, he had these development kits, and he did mention that a guy sent all these development kits from Cardiff, and I was like, that's actually really close by me. So I actually did spur interest, and I followed that guy ever since. But in this video, let's see if I can actually cover what's the benefits and what we can actually get more out of this modded actual console. But before we head and go and do that, I have to mention a couple of things. The whole 50Hz and 60Hz was never really initially a problem, and that was because of the whole microcomputer systems over here. Now I know in America a lot of YouTubers do state about this video game crash, but over here in the UK and in Europe that wasn't even a thing, and that was because of how popular the microcomputers were. So over here, a really big popular system was the Commodore 64, and then we had things like the Sinclair, and then we had the Amstrad, and more popular one was the Amiga. And these actual microcomputers would actually plug into its own type of TV that could handle these refresh rates. Even my own country actually managed to get a microcomputer. So initially, as the video game was actually getting more popular, these TVs that were coming in with the actual consoles could handle these refresh rates pretty fine. It wasn't until the whole actual NES and Master System actual generation started to kick in, and these consoles started to get more popular, and they had to be plugged into a TV. Now being plugged into a normal household TV, this is where the actual refresh rates and the resolution does change, and these actual consoles have to be built to the needs of the TV. Now if you have a quick look at some of these games that you got, even if they're older or even new, you will see the region where the game is actually designed for. So under the PlayStation logo you will see NTSC, but over here in PAL you just see a PAL zone. So you'll be thinking, what are these zones all about? So this is where the game is actually designed to actually be played on. So the PAL zones, I'll show you a quick map now of what the actual area zones are for. So when they were releasing these games, say for example for Japan, these were NTSC games. So they were built and designed for how their TVs were set then. So they were having a 60Hz output and a different type of resolution. Also the same also applied with America. They also had the 60Hz and a different type of resolution to us in the PAL zones. So games were designed differently for the zones that they were selling these games out for. So the PAL zones were slated quite a lot because of the actual non-benefits they had due to the original Japanese games or American games. And it wasn't until really the Sega Dreamcast actually kicked in as a home console that had a VGA output, and that would just bypass and have a good clear 60Hz output. And also the games were coming out round about in that generation of consoles, like the PlayStation 2, the Dreamcast and the GameCube, will give you that option to select 50Hz and 60Hz. So it was the consoles generation before that, like the PlayStation 1, the N64, then go back even further like the SNES and the Mega Drive, Master System and the NES. These were suffering from the lack of the 60Hz support. So to give you a quick sample now, let's run an awesome game that I remember back in the day, and was the first game I picked up as a child, and I had multiple games. I had 6 in one. I thought, wow, that was the only game I would have to play, and it always reminds me of Christmas. Now this is running in a PAL 50Hz, the standard way, and what you would find in a UK or PAL zone Mega Drive. The main reason why I like to show you this title is to pay close attention and hear the music being played. Then I'll show you how it sounds in 60Hz NTSC. So now let's hold down that reset button to change its region. You will see the flash light to a different color, and then we're good to go. So you must already notice now the speed is a little bit faster than the original PAL version, and that is because the original conversion to PAL actually drops down to 16.5% slower. So that actually does include in the gameplay as well. So let's boot up a classic Mega Drive game. But first, just a quick mention. If you have been wondering how on earth I've been capturing all this footage from the original console, I've been using this level hike HDMI adapter. I have covered footage in the past. I'll actually put a link in the description. I'll pop that up there for you now if you want to check that out. So I went with the main man in blue. If you haven't already played this game, which are the chances are, come on, pretty low on any devices that wasn't the original PAL console, you must be thinking, this is definitely slower than what I have originally played. Again, that is because of what I mentioned earlier, is the average slowdown is now dropped in frames by 16.5%, just due to how the TV's output hertz resolution is 50 Hz. Though when being a kid like myself playing this game back in the day, of course this was not an issue at all. We did not know any better, and the games of course are completely playable. It's only now looking back that you really notice this. So here now I will switch it to NTSC 60Hz. Now that's more like it. This is how the game was originally designed to play like. Imagine a game developer taking years to actually create a game to find out that people around the world, well, the PAL zones, were playing your creation all wrong. But it's not all that bad when it comes to PAL format. There are actually a couple of benefits at the time of the release, especially comparing it to the NTSC over in USA. Over here, the TV in the UK will pump out a slighter higher resolution, but that being taken advantage of was never really used. Very common connection to our TV that was very accessible, that perhaps be the highest in video and audio, being the RGB SCART, unlike what they had in the USA being the S-Video. I've explained a lot about those connections in my HDMI to the classic consoles in my previous videos. As this is a switchless mod and switches to other regions around the world, playing them in 60Hz, not all games from the PAL zones can actually run in 60Hz. This is because how the game was originally designed, creating somewhat of a region lock. This is not so much as a common case, but something to keep in mind. But now I have access to titles from all around the world, which is pretty awesome for collecting. When using certain game cartridges, some of them actually house the data of other regions' ROMs. So for instance, with this great classic, one of my favorite games of all time, this is a Genesis USA game cartridge. So when I actually switch this console to Japanese mode, you would then have access to the Japanese version of the ROM. Something that is pretty damn sweet. So now I can finally see Blaze's knickers when she's doing that jump air kick, something that the PAL version actually never got. Well, hopefully you guys have got a much better understanding now what this whole 50Hz, 60Hz, NTSC, PAL thing is all about. Obviously, I did not cover every small detail about this, just basic understanding. I do also cover a lot of other content regarding some HDMI adapters, some wireless adapters for all these actual older consoles, and I do provide actual web service so you guys can pick up some yourself. Always, as I end my videos, thanks for watching, and if you guys want to help and support this channel, click subscribe, hit that like, leave your comments below, and I catch you lot on the next video.